Welcome to Call Me Mister. You can call me Mr. White. And I just survived my first year of teaching. I'm headed into the next, and that's where I need help. And that's why I'm here. So every day for at least 10 months out of the year, students are walking into schools and classrooms and they are saying, "Good morning, Mister." Put your own name in there. But behind every Mister in the school, and I'm talking primarily for this podcast and what I'm working on, Christian Men in Education, these men have stories. And a lot of these men have not shared their stories. And yet they are men who have been called by the Lord to teach, educate, coach, administer these next generations, which is a huge calling to have and a job like none other. But at the same time, these men are faced with a society that underpays their teachers and educational staff, as well as they don't value them. To be a teacher is, oh, you're a teacher, that's it, that's what you can make. Maybe you failed in life, and so that's the best you could do is become a teacher. Of course, that's not how we should think of it, but I've found myself thinking that way too. Why? Because we have pressures of society as well as even Christians in the church that are saying such things. That being also like, get out of there. Why are you a teacher? You don't have a future in teaching. And then when you're maybe following the Lord and you're saying, I'm going to be a teacher, but how am I supposed to get married? How am I supposed to provide for a family? Have a house? How can I do any of that? Then very easily, it seems that people in the church and Christians would just say, well, you know what? You don't need to worry about tomorrow. The Lord will provide. Or seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. I've heard that from my church so many times. And yes, these things are great. It is good. We need to be firmly rooted in the word of God, and we should be reading our Bibles every day, drawing closer to him. But in one sense, this still leaves me as a younger man who thinks I might be a teacher, but I don't feel like a teacher, to I don't see myself as having a career in teaching because of these very things. It leaves me with a lot of questions, and it does not help me just to say, almost as a cop out, just do this, you'll be fine. And then when you hear older men who have gone through that, they seem to diminish all the years of struggle that they've had, this fight within them that I'm experiencing, as well as other young men are, of how do we do that? Like, if the Lord has me in this position, if I am following the Lord, doing the very best I can in this fallen world, knowing that I still have so much more to learn and that God really needs to keep on molding me into who he wants me to be. But how do I do that when, you know, there is so much that has to be figured out, and we can't just sit back and like, oh, it'll all come together. The universe will do its thing. Like, the Lord can definitely move mountains, split seas. He can do everything. And, that is great to know. But as a young person, it's still like, but what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to be doing more? Am I supposed to get another job? Now we're in summer as I'm recording this, and I have no income. I have about $3,000 left in my account, and I don't want to touch my housing account because I finally got it up to where I had lost money because I needed to use it to live. My car broke down. How do I do that? Well, it took like a third, at least a fourth, but after taxes, I would say a third of my part-time teaching salary last year just to fix my car and deal with the aftermath of getting conned and trying to buy a new car. To know I need to fix my old car. I have a whole episode on that at Fisher Philbrook, the show, called My $10,000 First Date. Oh, so you can go and look at that, watch that. It's a great story, a terrible story. But how do we move forward with this? And if I am following the Lord and I want to do these things such as get married, have kids, raise a family, can I do that within a career within teaching? That is something I've been wrestling with, that I have had a very hard summer, not because I didn't have a great year, not because I did not love teaching. I loved teaching. I loved working with students. I loved the staff I worked with, the administration, the school itself. It's attached to the church I go to. So there was so much good and fun, and man, if this was all life could be, it would be beautiful. But when I'm thinking of that, I'm thinking of this really nice movie where you're like, the simple man dresses up in a nice suit, goes in to teach the children, and then he helps with sports because all men have to do sports, which I actually love sports. But just imagine You're then a coach, and then you come home after a long day. Your wife is at home, has made some great dinner. You have your kids running around. It's lovely. You can provide for your family, being fulfilled as your role as a teacher, but also a husband, a father, protector, raising your own next generation within your family. And that's it. That's all you have to do. You go to sleep. You sleep well because teaching is hard. You wake up, you do it again. Then you look forward to having summers off to be with your family and your kids and all of that. But that is not the reality of these days. Not at least in California, I'll tell you that much. These teachers have multiple jobs. They're having to work during the summer. I actually really don't know how people are doing it. They're having their wives work, but then you watch, there's really good like YouTube videos out there about like the 2 income trap, where it's like, actually, no, it's not better for your wife to be working full time, because all of that money is putting you in a higher tax bracket, but also you're paying for other people to raise your kids way more than if just say the husband was working. But that does not mean it's easy either. So this podcast, what I'm putting together, comes out of a great need that I have had. I've wanted this sort of mentorship, this leadership in my life from other men who have been where I've been, that have overcome this, to see things that I know. Yes, the Lord can and will provide. He is the one we need to be putting our trust into. But I've learned I don't really hear from other men about how the Lord has done that. They don't share about that. And that's, an oversweeping generalization of men, is that we have not been taught to talk about what we're going through or have gone through, but knowing the most like breakthroughs you get in life is within community with other people around you. And one man's story can be enough to save another man's life or to push him forward, to grow his faith in the Lord as we hear the testimonies of others that are around us. And why I put this together was I was really inspired and impacted after going to the Association of Classical Christian Schools conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Not from just all the great speakers that they had. When people are like, oh, what did you get from it? I'm like, really? What impacted me was how many men I saw at this conference, in a world where I'm like, there's none of us. And why? Because schools can't pay. So how do they expect men, where schools are over the moon thrilled when they have men teaching with them and for them? But I'm like, but they're not going to last long unless they can pay more money. And so just seeing how many men, though, that was, I think, impactful, inspiring, and just being like, wow, there are so many men. And in this context of being Christian, these are Christian men who have followed the Lord's calling to basically give up their whole life. Teaching takes up so much of your life. And then when you're not even, most likely, I would say, especially on the Christian side, because public schools, they have taxes. You are currently being taxed, and you are funding the terrible schools that your kids are going to, hopefully they're not going to, that are not even being learned. They're not being taught correctly. And you see the mess that our society is turning into. Well, that's all of us. We're paying into that. But Christian and private schools, they get their money through tuition, through donors, through fundraisers, through like scraping in as much money as they can. And it's not that they don't want to pay the teachers. It's just, they just don't have the money. So these people at this conference, they are dealing with that. They are living through that, and they are happy, excited, proud to be teachers. Where I feel like I finished my first year of teaching. I was part-time teaching. No such thing as a part-time teacher. It's a full-time job. But I was getting paid part-time. And now I'm transitioning into a full-time teacher for my year 2, getting new subjects that I'm like, it's going to take me so long to learn how to do this, but also it's going to take so much from me. And I still don't really think I'm a teacher. That's a common thread through most of my life. I did musical theater. I'm not an actor or a musical theater person. I can sing, but I am not a singer. I can draw and create and do crazy cool things with my hands when it comes to pen on a page or graphic design, but I'm not an artist. I can write, but I'm not a writer. All of these titles and identities that so many people can easily take on, such as I am a teacher. Yes. And I hear that, especially when you get older, you're like, I taught for 35 years. And you're just like, wow, you are a teacher. And now after being a teacher, I'm like, wow, wow, wow. How did you survive so long as a teacher, especially if you are a man? But seeing all of this, I'm like, all these guys, they have not had the easy, straight path of and it's kind of a lie of our society. Like, just get a job that pays a lot, and then you'll find a wife and kids, and you'll be able to support them. Does that mean you will be fulfilled, that you will be happy, that your marriage will last, that you will even get to see your kids because you're working so crazy at a job that is just creating money for the sake of creating money, but not actually impacting lives. Like that's what I've seen with teaching. Is like, wow, the impact you have, I would say, is well worth the sacrifice of not getting paid what you should for such a hard job, to also like being underappreciated by society. And I find this problem even in the church, even with friends, of like acting like I'm stupid or foolish because I am choosing to follow the Lord and to remain a teacher, even though I don't really feel like a teacher yet. Maybe that will change as the show continues. But being told, get out of that, don't do that, go back to startups, go back to operations. And when I tell them, like, I've tried. So maybe that's not the answer you're expecting to hear. Like, no, I just gave up everything. I'm like, no, since January of this year, I've been trying so hard. I've been applying like crazy. I've used all these robots to help me get to interviews. I had a really good and successful 3-day work trial that I was like, this is it. It's hybrid, so I can still teach. Because what I told the administration was, I don't feel the strong like pull and feeling to get out of here, where I did at that fintech startup I was at last year for 10 weeks. Was like, nope, I need to get out, Mr. White. This is not for you. I don't feel that with the school. I still feel like it's such a fun, lovely place. I had a great time. But I also think I need to be responsible as a man, and knowing that I want to get married and have kids and have a house. And one of the neighbors, amazingly, and it's still not set in stone, but offered to maybe do a private sale of her house to me. So that's what really lit the fire. I'm like, oh, if I'm going to have a house payment to pay for, then I need to figure this out. How can I survive? How can I pay for the future, even when you're following the Lord? But that job that would have been perfect, it didn't work out. They did not want me. They actually, I saw on LinkedIn, hired a girl. When I looked at her account, I'm like, you do not have the experience. What are you doing? But that's not how I should be thinking, because I moved on. I need to move on. Like the Lord, it just comes down to the Lord did not want me there. So when people were telling me, and they keep kind of telling me, I think they've stopped now. So good. But insinuating all of that, like, you need to leave. I'm like, I tried, and I can't. Nobody wants me except the schools. And it's kind of an ongoing joke. Like, all the things I'm good at, a lot of it is creative wise. Uh, it doesn't pay money. And why? And so that's what I've been struggling with, and with talking with another friend. And I told him, like, very candidly, and that's just who I am. So you'll learn a lot about me as this continues. But it almost feels like, and why it is so hard to fall into saying I'm a teacher, is like, is that the best I can do? Like, I am setting up myself up for a career where I will never make money. And of course they pay, but money as in money that will get me to a marriage, to having kids, to paying a housing cost in the Bay Area, California. And the answer is like, usually no, it cannot, it will not on our own. But that's something that I've really had to struggle through. And I think I'm still working on that. Is like, and you hear it in jokes, but like, oh, those who can't do, they become teachers. Oh, you failed enough, so you just teach. And I've felt like that, and that's something that I have to work through. But at the same time, working as a teacher, I'm like, dude, this is not a role for failures. Like, I'm taking everything I've learned in life, through all my jobs, through all the hardships, failures, to the successes, to what I've learned, and I am bringing this to the next generation. Plus, I am working my butt off every night and every morning, like getting up early, staying up too late, to make sure that I can be the best teacher I can for the classes and the students I am teaching. So when I see that, when I see the people that I've worked with for this last year, and how much they sacrifice, how much they truly love their students, like, oh my goodness, how can we ever say that teachers, are just failures, who that's the best they can do? So there's so many lies that have been caught up with society towards people, even in the church, to what I've having to go through and wrestle with, that other young men are too, where we need guidance, we need mentorship, we need to know, how do people move forward in their life when they are following the Lord and what he has called them to do. But when you're slapped in the face and punched in the gut almost every morning, especially on summer break when you're not making any money, yet you've tried to find a part-time job, but the Lord has said no, to how can I do that and still move forward? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do more? Am I supposed to get another job? But that is why I'm starting this. I talked with a man at this conference, and his name is Mr. Tipton. Hopefully, he will be on the show. He did get my email, but once I know someone's first and last name, I'm like, and you're a teacher, I can find you. So I know where he teaches. Boom, boom, boom. But I had a great conversation with him, and he just got to share with me very briefly poolside because it was almost like 11 o'clock. But I was walking out, and I was just like, man, he had the same shoes that I have that like nobody has, Earth Runners. It was like, excuse me, sorry for interrupting, but are those Earth Runners? You're the first person I met who has ever had those. And then that's how we got talking. But he shared with me his own teaching career to now he's an administrator, and his wife was there, and they just shared about like how the Lord brought them through, like them both working to then having kids to now just the husband is working, and she had been making more money than he had, but just following the Lord to then taking their kids out of public school to homeschooling them, and just time and time again the Lord is providing for their family. And I'm like, that's what I need to hear, not just what I think the church so easily says of like, do not worry about tomorrow, it has enough worries of its own, or Matthew 6:33. That's the church I go to. I've heard that so many times. And yes, it's good. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Great. There's even a lovely child song that's the only way I can memorize that. I have to like sing it in my mind first, and I'm like, Alleluia, Alleluia. That's how it ends. But it's so easy, it seems, for older men just to say that. For people in the church, just throw all your worries to the Lord, do all of that. And yes, that's what we should be doing, and that's what I'm trying to do. But I'm still, as I've mentioned, probably this is the second or third time, you're still hit with reality of you still have responsibilities here on earth to do. But as we hear more and more, not just, yes, follow the Lord, seek him and his righteousness, we should be doing that. We should be, I got involved with volunteering with my church as a leader for the high school group, and it's also a blast working with youth. Like, I love that. But hearing the actual stories of others, and as we start to see that come together, that is what I think is the most impactful, hearing the testimonies of other men specifically who typically don't like to share, or if they do, they're like being forced onto a stage. But knowing that teachers, they do like to speak. And this whole conference, it was so fun because you run into people and you're like, you're a teacher too? Oh, so you know how to manage a class, and you know how to do these things that so many other people find very tricky. But I was also, from a standpoint, like going through this whole conference, I'm like, there's so much I need to learn. Man, these people are good. I'm just subpar, and I don't really think that. I think the kids I taught, they had a great year. I taught sixth grade math, a 12th grade consumer math, sixth to eighth grade boys PE, and third through fifth PE, as well as helped out with in like chaperoning a music class. But I did so many of these things that were like, man, took a lot out of you. And like you definitely, like as I said, there's a lot there if you want to be successful in it. But then seeing all these other teachers, I'm like, but they are the real ones. They are the superheroes. But just hearing from a couple different people, and even in like yesterday, I talked with a parent who is not a teacher, but his wife's a teacher, and he shared a little bit of his own story of how when they met, what they were doing, and how like it didn't look like it could work out on paper, but God's just been taking him through it. And I'm like, this is what we need to hear. This is what young men, and I know from experience of being in the young adults group, all these young men, at least where I'm at, but I think it's very common, we have jobs, we're working hard. Not everybody, but let's just say the ones I've talked to and I got to know, we are doing all of that, working as hard as we can, and it's still not enough. It's not enough money to push us forward. And the trap that guys get into is we tend to think, oh, our career and our job is our identity, and that's all that a woman wants for a husband. And it's true that some women think like that. They just want money to be taken care of. But when you talk to married men in the church, and women, it turns out that's not what they're looking for. They don't just want someone who can make money, because guess what? Eventually, everyone can make money. Like, that's not the thing. But are you following the Lord? Do you have a plan and vision for your future? Are you working hard every day for that? Are you disciplined? Are you, wanting to get married and take care of a wife, to lead her, to lead your family, to have kids? All of this. But for men, we just simplify it as, I don't make enough money. I'm poor. Nobody wants me. The end. And even, when someone's like, well, you want to get married? Are you dating? And I'm like, no, but I'm trying very hard. I'm on dating apps, but I'm also started at a new church young adult group because I'm too old for the one at my church. Like, I'm praying, I'm asking, like, it's not that I'm sitting back, but it also feels like, how can I start a relationship headed towards marriage, because I do want to get married and have kids, like boom, 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 let's just get going. How can I do that when I know I cannot provide financially? Ooh. And that's what it always comes back to. And that's the question I think young men are having to come back to. So the goal of this show is not to convince anyone you should become a teacher. That's like, like, I think through it though, that is something that might come up, but it's not convincing. But I need this. I think other young male teachers need this. And even adult men, I'm an adult. I'm 31, almost 32 in October, if you wanted to know. But we can all learn from each other of how God's worked in our own lives to really encourage one another. And just looking at some statistics for U.S. public school teachers taken from the National Center for Education Statistics in 2020 to 2021 school year, only 23% of teachers were men. So that's less than a quarter. And when we're looking at elementary schools, public schools in that same time zone, 11% were male teachers. And what I've learned so much from being a male teacher, what I hear from parents to female teachers that have sons, is that, of course, it's good to have male teachers. Everyone you talk to says, we need more men in our schools. And a lot of it, when I've think through and when I looked up some stuff on that, like why do we need that? But just the role model that these men bring to particularly young boys and students that are male. But also I think a lot of girl students can gain a lot too, just seeing, like, as you would in your own household, you have a mom and you have a dad, and God created male and female. That's it. Nothing else. But we each have our roles and our paths in our lives, and that's what we can bring to the younger generations. But the Bible does talk a lot about like older men pouring into younger men, same with older women into younger women. And I saw, even just from notes from students, like such nice things of like, you are the most athletic and smart person, a smart teacher that I have as a PE teacher and math teacher. And I don't think that. No, I know so many people that are way stronger than me, and I didn't really have time to work out during this crazy year of first year teaching. So I'm like, I've lost like 10 pounds. Most people, great, you lost 10 pounds. I'm like, no, that's not good. I need to gain muscle. But even so, working out with the kids, playing sports with them, like, man, it was so fun. And then teaching math, where I'm like, they don't know that I like am learning it the weekend before to reteach myself, because I haven't done math in like over a decade, to then figure out how do I teach it to students, to how do I have enough resources and activities to make the class interesting and fun and hit those classical Christian education elements that we're supposed to do, while I'm still trying to figure out, why does the curriculum not help me out? Like, they make everything so complicated, so much harder than it has to be. They don't give things that teachers could actually use. And so to be a good teacher, is what I saw, you have to do like 75% more of what like the 25% that the curriculum brings you. And teachers who have been teaching for a long time, oh, that's normal. That's fine. Yeah, yeah. But I also hear from teachers and administrators, oh, give it, I think it's either 4 years or 7 years, and then teaching becomes easier. And my question right back to them is, how does anyone last that many years when your first year it's pretty hellish? It sounds terrible to say, but like, it is so much work. And I say I was treading water the whole time. My close friend, who also, he was teaching and going to school and doing so many other things and working another job, he's like, oh, I was more of drowning. I was like, yeah, that's what we're doing. Of like having to balance, like if I am full-time teaching next year, and if I have a house that the neighbor might sell to me, I will probably have to get another job too. And of course, it'll be part-time, something that can bring like an extra 20,000 to get me to a rate of what like a normal job would be, but a normal lower paying job. So I'm like, man, that's what we're having to deal with. That's what men in education are having to do. And when you just look on paper, it does not make sense. It seems foolish. And that's the identity part is, I think, at least for myself, is very hard. And like knowing I have so much the Lord can use for me, so many talents. And I mean, the kicker is a lot of them, because a lot of it's like creative, drawing, graphic design, to performing, theater, singing, sports. I did a ton of sports growing up. Like this past year, I saw, I'm like, wow, a lot of these are actually very well suited for being in a school where kids are all in those things. And it also makes me think, like, why as adults do we stop playing sports? Do we stop doing everything fun that we have? So in that regard, I think teaching is a blast. You have so many things you can plug into. And I got to play, I didn't coach volleyball, but the main like girls coach, she and I went to high school. We graduated together. So like I got to just jump in and play volleyball, spike and hit against her team, to play teachers against students. Like I had so much fun. And so those are things though I also put up against, but I've also worked in startups. I've done operations. I helped like build a startup with a co-founding couple, like right out of college. Like we hit amazing heights. We did so much cool and impactful things in those 5 years, to then starting my own business and businesses I've tried to start, but I've failed in. And like, I have a mind for strategy and like operations and building. That's what I learned. I'm not good at selling the business ideas I make. I'm very good at building them and then operating them. So that was something I learned in this last year. So praise God for that, because I needed to learn the hard way, I guess. But does it feel like I'm giving up because I am settling into maybe being a teacher? I don't know if I can teach more than this year, because if I can't find an additional way to make money, or if the school can't pay more money, besides like an extra 1,000, extra 2,000, because yeah, you're a third year teacher now. Like, no, that doesn't work for a man in a career. But how do we put that together? How do we justify that? How do we move forward in life confidently, knowing that the Lord has got our back? He is the one pushing this forward. Last summer, I came across a verse and it was so helpful. Proverbs 20:24. A man's steps are directed by the Lord. How then can anyone understand his own way? And that's what I have to share with people. I'm like, as I was building a new business last summer, after getting out of that terrible job where people even in the church said, you just need to stay there and be miserable, to then knowing like, no, God doesn't want me there. I don't know what he's doing, but taking comfort in that, like the Lord is directing my steps. He would bring me new things to work on within that business, or I'd come to a problem. I'd go to the gym and work out. By the end of the workout, in my mind, I knew what I needed to do. And that wasn't for me. That was the Lord directing my steps. But then zoom out and I still don't know where I'm going. How can I understand that? Like, I was telling a friend how crazy it would be. Like in this scenario, I've been working for years to try to make money, to have my own business, to then buy somewhere to live, to then find a wife, to have kids, all of that. But this might be, I'm like a poor man teacher. All of a sudden, I have a house thrown at me, to then maybe I'll find a wife, to get married, and then have kids, all while doing a career where I was like, this is not possible. If you said be a teacher and provide like the sole or like main income to your family and own a house in the Bay Area, no, that can't happen. But we see that the Lord can happen and he can make all this. So I'm excited for this show, getting to talk with other men, whether you are a teacher, an educator, an aide, a coach, an administrator. Most people, men in administration, they started as teachers. So yes, of course, we want to hear from you as well. And so I think it's just going to be so impactful to encourage one another, but also to encourage folks like me. Like, I don't know everything. As a host of the show, I love to talk, and the Lord has given that to me. Where I was on that plane ride to Atlanta, there and back, I had some great conversations with strangers, and I get such a kick out of that, of talking to people I will probably never talk with again. But in the context of this, is what I was seeing when I met the guy at the pool. Was I found him the next day. The Lord brought him to me because I was like, he had said like, oh, I'll show you tomorrow some other cool dress shoes that are better for your feet. And so I'm looking around through like the seas of people, and I'm like, we're all in dress clothes. How will I find this guy? We didn't say where to find each other. So I'm like, Lord, if you can show him to me, like, let us meet up again. And so we did. I found him. And I was like, yes. But I had asked him this question, like, if I stay in teaching and I'm very entrepreneurial minded and like I just love to create, is there anything you've seen for men? Like, what could be created to help other men that have been called by the Lord to be in education? And he said he would think about it and get back to me. I gave him my email. But as the week and days have gone on, this is what the Lord has brought to me. At least we shall see where it goes. But just this idea of like, man, as I talked with a few people and they shared the same love for teaching, but then also put that next to like how the Lord was able to provide for them to move forward and get married and have kids. That is where I found it the most helpful. And I even think from there is where we need like these older men that are maybe 10 years older to be mentoring the younger men in education. and bring the truth of what they actually went through and not just glossing it over of like, just follow this verse and just, don't worry about it. And I'm like, that's all I worry about. Because I like to think, and that's good. We should be using our minds to think, but we do need to balance that with, you can work so hard and just keep on working in your own power, and you will not get anywhere. Or you will get somewhere, but is it with God? And if it's not worth it. So I'm excited for that. And just the questions that I can ask other men who have been called to do this. So whether you're currently in that or you had a career in that and you're retired, I think that's what I want to hear from. And that's how we can encourage one another. So I'll leave it with this. If you are one of those men, please reach out to me. I'll have my website in the show notes. You can also email me, michael@fisherphilbrick.com. I love email and communicating and writing. It's a big kick for me, but I think this is going to be super impactful as I build this out this summer and hopefully maintain it throughout the school year.